Hi there! Been a while, hasn't it? This video took way longer to make than it should have. I started on it probably around this time last year, got all the way to editing it together, then realised I wasn't happy with it at all, and scrapped it. So between then and now, I've scrapped several other ideas, rewritten this particular script more than once, and had my motivation completely destroyed several times. But at the end of the day, I knew I still wanted to get it finished eventually, and now here we are. I'm hoping the other videos I did in the meantime kept people entertained. Anyway, welcome to my top 10 current favourite games list. Give it a few months and all of this will probably technically change, but it's whatever. Point is, I've narrowed it down, and this time I'm actually happy with how I've done it. I think. As with the last I did, these are just my personal opinions, so please feel free to leave your own personal top 10 games in the comments below. Or even just your favourite game. Either way, I'd love to hear about it. Also, I'm only doing one game per franchise to prevent the list from feeling too repetitive. With that said though, let's begin. Number 10, Phasmophobia. Now, obviously this game is still in development, and I was tempted to not include it, purely for that fact since it could either end up being left unfinished or drastically changed. But I have been really enjoying it as it is currently, and I would have felt bad not talking about it. For those of you who don't know, Phasmophobia is a 4-player co-op horror game where you have to go into a house or building and locate a ghost in one of the rooms before collecting evidence to figure out what kind of ghost you're dealing with. And I have to admit, for the longest time, I have wanted a game like this. Not specifically for the ghost hunting aspect, but for the co-op horror. Sure, GTFO exists, but that wasn't really good for just a casual experience. Phasmophobia, on the other hand, is great for that, and the type of horror it goes for, I can't praise it enough. So many horror games are just all about jump scares, and that's what I thought this was going to be like at first, but it's not. There's no sudden, loud, cheap jump scares, no ghosts grabbing you and screaming in your face. It's just silence. Maybe a door creaking open at the end of a hallway, something falling over that you never touched, or maybe the ghost appearing in the corner of your vision. It's all horror to unnerve you and make you hesitate in your investigation. Would you rather get the money for that extra task, or would you rather leave and not risk being hunted? I would definitely recommend this to any horror lovers or just anyone looking for a scary game to play with their friends. However, keep in mind that it is still in development, so it's a tad rough around the edges. Number 9, House Flipper. This is honestly the most relaxing game in the whole list. In House Flipper, your job is to complete tasks and fix up houses. Simple as. Tasks will be sent to you via emails, and if accepted, will have you completing a main objective along with some additional side objectives for if you want to 100% the task. These are fun, and are personally my favourite aspect of the game. It's just a shame once you've completed them all and there's no more. However, you can also buy houses and fix them up to your heart's delight. Cleaning and fixing things is surprisingly satisfying, and afterwards there's plenty of customization options to choose from. It's really great, and I'm sure any other people out there that like to be creative would love this. The only downside is the buyers. They don't really impact anything, but having to put up with them constantly complaining about stuff when you're not even trying to flip a house for them can get irritating. And unfortunately, there's no way to turn them off. The worst is during the selling process when they complain that there's too many rooms, they don't need a certain room, or that there isn't a room that they wanted when there actually is. It's easy enough to ignore, but it drives me up the wall. There's also some DLC that expands on the base game, mainly adding garden customization, which is great. However, I personally find it a lot more tedious, and the HDTV DLC, which adds more houses and a new environment. They're both great, but if you could only get one, I would definitely suggest the Garden Flipper DLC. Overall though, the game is great, and I highly recommend it to anyone looking for a game where you can express your creativity. Number 8, Left 4 Dead 2. So, this was one of the reasons for me scrapping the very first version of this video. Not the main reason, but I did want to mention it, and I wouldn't have been able to. I should also probably state straight off the bat that I use mods to replace the teammates. It's not that I don't like them, I think they all have some kind of interesting trait to them, be it their personality, or some quirks, or just whatever. I just was never really able to get attached to them at all. Anyway, Left 4 Dead 2. Did I ever think I would get into it? Not really. I'm not someone who's big on zombies. I generally find them rather boring and uninteresting. However, this game is really fun. It's something a lot different to the type of games I would usually play, and yes, at first I wasn't that taken by it, but I gave it another go after installing mods, and I was able to enjoy it. The dialogue between the teammates is rather entertaining, the environments are cool, I have a soft spot for the Carnival campaign, anyone who's seen my previous top 10 list will probably understand why, and the gameplay itself can be a good mix of challenging and relaxing. Granted, I just slice through everything with some kind of melee weapon, unless I have a reason to switch to a gun. I'm assuming that's not how you're meant to play, and I'm probably going to get a bunch of hate from the community. But hey, it works! It's what I like doing. Also, something I found out is that I enjoy games with AI teammates. Sure, they're not perfect, they're not other players, and they can get stuck and bug out, but it still gives that feeling of companionship when you don't have any other friends available. So I quite like it. Maybe I'm just lonely though, who knows. For anyone who hasn't played the game and might be interested now, there are other game modes as well as the campaign. You've got stuff like versus mode, survival, you know, all that jazz. And there's a bunch of mutators to change up the gameplay, so I would definitely recommend it. If you're one of the few who's never played it before. Number 7, The Sims 4. Out of all the games on this list, this is probably the only one that causes me to completely lose track of time and spend hours on end playing without even realizing. And to this day, I'm still not entirely sure why. I guess there's just something enjoyable about creating a sim and seeing them live out a better life than you ever could. Want to go to space? Build a rocket and go for it. Want to live in a house full of cats? Easy peasy. Want to hook up with every person you meet? Download Wicked Whims to make it a hell of a lot more interesting and hope that no one ever finds out. I'm joking, of course. Although those are all things you can do. But in all seriousness, there are several reasons for this being one of my favourite games. First off, there's the Create a Sim. If you're someone that likes designing characters, then this will probably be great for you. And there's a bunch of custom content you can download for it. Although, personally, I'm not a big fan of it. Secondly, there's a build mode. There's so much you can do with this, and some of the lots that people create are amazing. However, it can take a lot of time, and I generally find myself getting tired after a while. And thirdly, there's a live mode, I don't know how to pronounce it, either one. Which is the main gameplay. Personally, this is my favorite part. Creating stuff in-game is great, but working your way through life and leveling up skills is, I guess, satisfying to me? This isn't all without its flaws though. There's numerous bugs, Sims will ignore what you tell them to do or just straight up be dumb, and there's a bunch of DLC that is never worth its full price and should only be bought when it's like 50% off. Yeah, this game is kind of a cash cow. Also, if you played The Sims 3, then you'll possibly be disappointed by the lack of customizable colors. But besides all that, this is still a great game, and if you're interested, then I definitely suggest checking it out. Number 6, Sonic Riders. Yep, out of every entry in the Sonic series, the first Riders game is my favourite. Although Heroes is a close second. Sure, it's just a racing game, and it may not have a huge amount of tracks to choose from, but there's just something about it that keeps me coming back time and time again. Maybe it's the music, maybe it's how fast it feels, or maybe it's because you get to race on hoverboards. Fucking hoverboards! I mean, technically they're called extreme gear, but they're still hoverboards! There's just something really cool about the design of them, and considering all the other racing games in the franchise are either just on foot or in car, this was pretty unique. Plus they felt super fast, and sure, some of them are complete trash, looking at you, hovercraft, but if you're skilled enough, you can still manage to win with all of them. Now, of course, I have to take a moment to address the music. This game has a couple of the best tracks in the whole franchise, specifically Egg Factory and Sand Ruins. Honestly, most of the music from this era of Sonic games was really good. This, Heroes, and Shadow the Hedgehog are probably the soundtracks I listen to the most in the series. Character-wise, Riders may not have the most to choose from, but it's still a good amount, especially since it introduced the Babylon Rogues. Design-wise, Jazz and Wave are some of my favourite characters. They just look really cool and don't get used nearly enough. Although, considering the voice changes in Free Riders... Anyway, alongside the Sonic characters, there are 3 other Sega characters. Specifically Ai from Super Monkey Ball, Nights from Nights into Dreams, and Ulala from... well, I don't know anything about her. And if you manage to get Golden Null for tasks, then you can even unlock Super Sonic, which I've unfortunately never been able to do. I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate from having this as my favourite Sonic game, but it's good. It's not perfect, but I like it. Number 5, Animaniacs, The Great Edgar Hunt. I'll be surprised if anyone knows this one. Animaniacs, The Great Edgar Hunt seems to be a rather obscure game that I probably never would have known of if it wasn't for my parents getting it randomly when I was a kid. Although, I suppose it's a good thing they did, as it's one of my favourite games. To put it simply, the game revolves around going to different movie sets, completing missions, and collecting the 45 Edgars, which are essentially Oscars, that have been lost. So basically it's your standard early 2000s kids game. I still find something really fun about it though. It's probably just because of nostalgia, but this is a game I find myself going back to a lot. The environments are bright and creative, the music goes really well with the visuals, and the characters feel good to control. There are a few things I don't like, of course. The minigame to get the shovel is rather annoying. I've never found the epic or the mine area in King O'Sullivan's mines that engaging. And one mission in Once Upon a Time is terrifying, and as someone with really bad arachnophobia, completing it is hell. But of course, these are all personal issues I have with it, and I don't think they would necessarily bother anyone else. Oh, and this stupid tunnel in Spooky Movie used to freak me out as a kid, and I don't know why. But yeah, definitely a game I would recommend to anyone who missed it as a kid and is interested in trying it out. Number 4, Doom 2016. Now here's a game I never thought I would ever even be interested in, let alone have it be one of my favourites, but I guess life can be funny like that sometimes. I remember the only reason I ended up being curious about it was because I saw some clips just showing off the environments, and the style and graphics alone were enough to make me want to look into it. I can't remember if I tried out the demo first or watched Markiplier play some of it, but either way I ended up buying it, and it was the main reason I went out and actually bought a proper graphics card for my computer. But onto the actual game. As I mentioned, the graphics and environments are gorgeous, but I could gush about them all day. What else is there? Well, there is the music. I mean, yeah, Doom Eternal probably has the better soundtrack, but 2016 still has some real standouts. At Doom's Gate, Cyber Demon and Mastermind come to mind. Hell, even the main menu music is more awesome than it has any right to be. And of course, I can't go without mentioning BFG Division. It's so good they even included it in Eternal. The gameplay itself is also some of the most fun I've ever had in an FPS game. It revolves heavily around movement rather than most in the genre, where it's more about taking cover and holding down the one spot. And while coming back to this after playing Eternal can feel a bit lacking due to the loss of so many mechanics that were added in the sequel, it's still so much fun to play. Now, I've made a few comparisons to Eternal, so I'm assuming you're all wondering why I still prefer 2016 over the sequel. Well, it's mainly because I feel this one just has a bit more replayability. The levels are shorter, and I prefer almost all of the demon designs. Plus, you don't have to deal with any fucking marauders. Just because it's easy to deal with them in theory does not mean it's easy in practice. Number 3, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. For the longest time, this was actually my number 1 favourite game. However, it ended up getting pushed down not too long ago. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets still holds a special place in my heart though. I played it on and off through most of my childhood, along with Prisoner of Azkaban, and for a time that was the one I preferred. However, going back to it now is limiting, I guess. So, where do I even start with this? Well, I guess I can talk about the music. This game may not be my number 1 anymore, but the soundtrack definitely still holds that spot. There's something very mysterious, magical, and eerie to it, and no matter how much I listen to it, I just still can't get enough. I mean, honestly, I prefer it to the actual movie soundtrack. Tracks like Diagon Alley, Gryffindor Common Room, and Spell Atmos have such a magical feel to them. Meanwhile, ones like Hogwarts Grounds at Night, Stealth, Sneak, and Transfiguration manage to have a much darker tone. But that's just the music. What about the gameplay? Well, it's about what you'd expect from an early 2000s kids game. Complete tasks, collect spells, and optionally complete your collection of wizard cards. So yeah, it's not the most unique gameplay ever, mainly being a sort of open world platformer. I'm really not sure what genre it would count as. It's fun getting to run around Hogwarts though. The only real bad thing about it is the Quidditch. Matches can go on for way too long, and boosting makes the broom near impossible to control. Plus, the camera rotating around you when you catch a snitch can be rather nauseating. All in all though, this is and always will be one of my favourite games, even if I failed to get 100% on it twice now due to stupid bugs. Number 2, Beat Saber. This is another reason for this video getting delayed, but it's worth it in my mind since now I get to talk about it. I know everything in this list is just my personal opinion, but holy shit, this is one of the best games ever. I honestly feel bad for people who aren't able to experience it at all since, well, VR costs a lot. I had been wanting to play this for years and I would watch videos of it constantly, and then I finally managed to get a Vive at the end of last year, so of course this was my #1 priority. This really is some of the most fun I've ever had with a game though. The music's great, it feels amazing to play, and it's so addictive. When I first started out, I couldn't tear myself away from it half the time. Of course, now the excitement's faded away and I'm more accustomed to both Beat Saber and VR in general, but it's still a blast and is a VR game I have the most hours on. I mean, come on, you essentially get to use lightsabers! Playing through the songs feels so satisfying, and it's very easy to get lost in the music and start dancing about. It actually leads to being a good workout as well due to that. And there's also multiplayer, which can be really fun. It's rather amusing when you get into a match with people that are trying to communicate with just body language, as there's no chat system. But from what I've seen, it's not a super competitive environment. At least, that's how it feels for me. Whenever I join a multiplayer server, I'm just there to have fun, and I honestly feel bad if I ever end up going on a winning streak. The only downside is, even if you have the music pack setting set to all, people usually still only vote for the base game music, as there's no way to know what music packs other people have. If you have VR, then I probably don't need to recommend this, as I would assume that you've already tried it. And for the people who don't have VR, well, if I managed to save up to afford it, then you definitely can too. It's an experience you don't want to miss. Now then, if you saw my previous top 10 list, you know what's next. Honourable mentions. Although, due to how many there are, I'm not going to go into detail about them at all. Instead, I've put together a little something to show them off. So, yeah, enjoy! Number 1, Payday 2. Jimmy, do I even need to say any more? Alright, fine. I highly doubt I could get away with just that. For those of you that have watched my other videos, you might have seen this coming, as I've made about 3 in the past that at the very least reference Payday 2, plus the series I've started. But yes, this is my favourite game of all time. I had always been curious about Payday 2 for a few years, as I'd seen it on Steam every now and then, and eventually I tried it out as me and my friend were trying to find co-op games we could play together. And from the tutorial alone, I was just hooked instantly. Something about the gameplay and the overall feel of the game was just really different from everything I had played before at that point. Stealthing made me feel super sneaky when I actually pulled it off, although most of the time I would set off the alarm right at the end and fuck everything up. And going loud still to this day occasionally makes me feel like I'm invincible. And then I discovered Jimmy, and my addiction was taken to a whole new level. At first it was just because I found his voice amusing, but then it developed into something more, and well, now I refuse to do heists without him and would rather risk failing the entire heist than have him go into custody. No one hurts my goddamn scruffy boy and gets away with it! Yes, I do absolutely despise Akan. Why do you ask? Not the point. Anyway, what else can I talk about? Oh yeah, the music! It's good, it's cool, I like it. Most of it anyway. Some tracks are, well, yeah, that. But the majority is really good. It's nice to have a team as well for once. I usually have Dallas and Hoxton as my 2 other members. Originally it was Bonnie and Joy, but I never really cared about Bonnie that much. I don't seem to get on that well with fellow Scots for some reason. And Joy, let's just say she was kicked off for personal reasons. Also, the VR is fun. Getting to actually sort of be inside my favourite game is a really cool experience. Even if I do just end up being distracted by Jamie for basically the whole time. Also, I can only really do 2 or 3 heists before I'm exhausted. The perks of having a health condition, am I right? Overall though, Payday 2 is a game that I would 100% recommend to at least check out at some point in your life. So yeah, that was my list. I tried to not make the entries too short, but I feel like I stretched my points just a little too far. I don't know. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get the length of this kind of thing right, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. I'm not sure what my next video will be, so it might be a little while before my next proper upload. I'll try and keep the channel updated with speed paints every now and then, plus the Payday 2 series I've started. Also, someone suggested a drawing tutorial months back. I did notice that, don't worry. So I'll probably get around to that at some point, when I actually have a good image idea for it. Until next time though, bye!